I trusted my family with my daughter's life. That was my first mistake. When my sister called about the family reunion trip to Costa Rica, it seemed like the perfect opportunity for my 18-year-old daughter Sarah to bond with her cousins before starting college. Tyler was 20, Amanda was 19, and they'd always been close growing up. "Come on, Rebecca," my sister laughed over the phone. "Sarah needs to have some fun before she gets buried in textbooks. The kids will look out for each other." I should have trusted my gut instead of their promises. The trip had been planned for 6 months. Tyler, my nephew, had presented this elaborate itinerary with beach resorts, zip-lining, and cultural tours. He seemed so responsible, so mature. Amanda, his sister, chimed in with Pinterest boards full of Instagram-worthy photos they'd take together. They painted this picture of cousin bonding and adventure that seemed too good to pass up. But there were signs, red flags I chose to ignore because they were family. Tyler had a history of reckless behavior that somehow always got swept under the rug. The time he crashed his dad's car and blamed it on bad brakes. The incident at his high school graduation party where 3 kids ended up in the hospital, but Tyler was conveniently in the bathroom when it happened. The way he'd manipulate situations to make himself look like the victim when things went wrong. Family loyalty is supposed to be sacred, right? That's what I'd been taught my entire life. You protect family, you trust family, you give family the benefit of the doubt, because blood is thicker than water. What they don't tell you is that sometimes blood can poison you. The psychological conditioning runs deep when you're raised in a family that prioritizes loyalty over safety, appearances over truth. I'd spent 42 years believing that questioning family motives was betrayal, that setting boundaries was selfish, that protecting my own child from family members was paranoid and dramatic. The research shows that 43% of American adults feel more anxious than the previous year, and much of that anxiety stems from family-related stress. But we don't talk about it because admitting your family is toxic feels like admitting failure. We're supposed to love unconditionally, forgive endlessly, and trust blindly. I was the perfect victim for family manipulation because I'd been conditioned to be one. The planning phase should have been my wake-up call. When I offered to contribute equally to trip expenses, Tyler brushed me off. "Don't worry about it, Aunt Rebecca. We've got connections. Everything's handled." But when I pressed for details about accommodations and itineraries, I got vague responses and deflection. Amanda would change the subject whenever I asked about safety protocols or emergency contacts. "You worry too much," she'd say with that patronizing smile. Sarah's practically an adult. She needs to learn independence. The gaslighting was subtle but constant. Every concern I raised was met with eye rolls and comments about me being overprotective or paranoid. They made me feel like the problem was my anxiety, not their lack of transparency. 3 days before departure, I found out they'd booked accommodations in Manuel Antonio, an area that had recently been flagged by the State Department due to increased crime rates. When I brought this up, Tyler laughed. "Aunt Rebecca, you can't live your life in fear. That stuff is overblown by the media." But the biggest red flag was the passport situation. Sarah had renewed her passport 2 months earlier, and I'd personally handed it to Tyler for safekeeping since he was handling all the travel documents. Looking back, why did I do that? Why did I give control of my daughter's most important travel document to someone else? because family manipulation works by gradually eroding your natural protective instincts and replacing them with guilt and obligation. The night before they left, Sarah seemed nervous. She came to my room and sat on the edge of my bed, fidgeting with her phone. "Mom, Tyler's been acting weird about the hotel arrangements. He won't show me the confirmations." And when I asked Amanda, she got all defensive. I should have listened. I should have demanded to see those confirmations myself. Instead, I hugged her and said, "Honey, they're your family. They love you. Trust them." Those words haunt me every single day. The manipulation had worked perfectly. They'd isolated the decision-making, controlled the information flow, dismissed my concerns, and made me complicit in my own daughter's endangerment. Classic toxic family dynamics, and I'd fallen for every single one. As I watched Sarah's Uber pull away that morning, heading to the airport to meet Tyler and Amanda, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Something was wrong. Every maternal instinct I possessed was screaming danger. But I'd been trained to ignore those instincts in favor of family harmony. That training nearly cost me everything. The call came at 3:17 a.m. on their third day in Costa Rica. I know the exact time because I was staring at my phone, wide awake with worry. Sarah's name flashed on the screen, and my heart immediately started racing. "Mom," her voice was barely a whisper, shaking with tears and terror. "Mom, I need help. Tyler and Amanda left me. They left me here alone." Those words hit like physical blows. "What do you mean they left you? Where are you?" "I'm at the airport in San Jose. They said we were going home early because of weather. But when we got here, Tyler had boarding passes for only him and Amanda. They said there wasn't room for me on the flight. They said I'd have to wait for the next one." My hands started shaking so violently I could barely hold the phone. "Where's your passport, baby?" The silence that followed lasted forever. Then, in a voice so small and broken it shattered my heart, "They said they put it in the hotel safe for security. But Mom, the hotel says they never had a safe deposit from our room. Tyler has my passport. He took it with him." The room started spinning. My daughter was stranded in a foreign country that the State Department had specifically warned against traveling to, without her passport, without money, abandoned by the family members who'd promised to protect her. "Mom, I heard Tyler and Amanda laughing in the terminal. Amanda said, 'That was hilarious, you should have seen her face.' Tyler said, 'She'll figure it out. It's not like she's going to die.'" Rage exploded through my chest, like nothing I'd ever experienced. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't some mix-up or misunderstanding. They had deliberately, intentionally abandoned my 18-year-old daughter in a dangerous foreign country and laughed about her terror. They had planned this. "Sarah, listen to me very carefully. Do not leave the airport. Find the American Embassy contact information immediately. I'm going to get you help. Do you understand me? I'm going to bring you home." But even as I was trying to comfort my daughter, my mind was already shifting into something I'd never felt before. The panic was crystallizing into ice-cold, calculated fury. The maternal instinct to protect my child was overriding 42 years of family conditioning. They thought they could abandon my daughter and laugh about it. They had no idea what they'd just awakened in me. The next 48 hours were a blur of phone calls, emergency contacts, and frantic research. But somewhere in that chaos, my mindset fundamentally shifted. I stopped being the accommodating family member who gave everyone the benefit of the doubt, I became a strategist with one objective: get my daughter home safely and make sure Tyler and Amanda faced consequences for what they'd done. I started documenting everything: screenshots of every text message, records of every phone call, timestamps and contact logs. I contacted the hotel directly and confirmed that Tyler had checked himself and Amanda out a full day early, while telling hotel staff that the third guest had already left separately. I reached out to the American Embassy in Costa Rica and discovered that abandoning a U.S. citizen without proper documentation wasn't just cruel, it was potentially a federal crime. But the smoking gun came when I accessed Tyler's social media accounts. In his hubris, he'd documented the entire thing. There were Instagram stories showing him and Amanda at the airport, boarding their flight. The timestamp showed they'd posted these while Sarah was still at the hotel, believing they were all traveling home together. More damning were the deleted messages I was able to recover through Amanda's cloud backup, which she'd foolishly linked to the family shared account. Messages between Tyler and Amanda planning this prank for weeks. Messages discussing how Rebecca babies Sarah too much and how this would teach her some independence. They'd plotted this abandonment. They'd reveled in the planning, and they'd executed it with malicious precision. While I was working frantically to get Sarah emergency travel documents through the embassy, Tyler was posting TikTok videos about his epic Costa Rica adventure. While my daughter was having panic attacks in a foreign airport, Amanda was uploading photos of the amazing cousin bonding trip. The cruelty was breathtaking, but their biggest mistake was underestimating what a mother would do to protect her child. I wasn't just gathering evidence for family drama resolution. I was building a federal case. By day 2 of Sarah's ordeal, I had contacted the FBI's International Crimes Division. Abandoning a U.S. citizen abroad, especially through deliberate deception and theft of travel documents, falls under federal jurisdiction. When minors or young adults are involved, the charges become even more serious. I'd also retained a criminal defense attorney who specialized in international incidents. Not for Tyler and Amanda, for me, because what I was about to do was going to require legal protection. The evidence I'd compiled was devastating. Digital forensics had recovered not just the planning messages, but also proof that Tyler had deliberately booked return flights for only himself and Amanda. Hotel security footage confirmed he'd taken Sarah's passport from their shared room safe. Banking records showed he'd withdrawn cash in amounts that matched exactly his and Amanda's return travel costs, not enough for 3 people. This wasn't a prank that went wrong. This was premeditated abandonment with federal implications. But I wasn't finished. While Tyler and Amanda were back home posting on social media about their amazing trip, I was building alliances with people who had the power to destroy them. The FBI agent assigned to Sarah's case was a parent himself. When I showed him the recovered messages where Tyler and Amanda discussed leaving Sarah to figure it out on her own, in a country they knew was dangerous, his expression hardened in a way that told me justice was coming. The embassy official who'd helped coordinate Sarah's emergency return documents had seen cases like this before. "Ms. Martinez," she told me during one of our calls, "what your nephew and niece did isn't just morally reprehensible. It's legally actionable. And frankly, it's time someone made an example." The local news reporter who'd been following international travel safety stories was very interested in a case involving American college students deliberately abandoning their cousin abroad. "This isn't just a family dispute," she explained. "This is about international travel safety and accountability. People need to know this kind of thing happens." Tyler and Amanda had created their own nightmare. Every cruel message, every social media post, every piece of evidence of their premeditation was going to be used against them in federal court. They thought abandoning my daughter was hilarious. They were about to learn that federal charges aren't funny at all. By the time Sarah's emergency travel documents were processed and she was safely on a plane home, I had compiled enough evidence to end Tyler and Amanda's futures. Screenshots, bank records, hotel footage, social media posts, witness statements from other travelers who'd seen the abandonment happen in real time. But the most damning evidence was in their own words. Messages planning the abandonment, posts celebrating their successful prank, videos documenting their callous indifference to Sarah's safety and terror. They documented their own federal crimes and posted them online for the world to see. As I sat in the airport waiting for Sarah's return flight, I felt something I'd never experienced before. Not just relief that my daughter was safe, but a cold satisfaction knowing that justice was inevitable. Tyler and Amanda had picked the wrong family member to betray. They were about to learn that when you abandon someone's child in a foreign country and laugh about it, there are consequences that go far beyond family drama, federal consequences. And those consequences were about to come knocking on their door. The knock came at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week after Sarah had returned home safely. I know the exact time because Tyler's roommate posted about it on Twitter, complete with a shaky video of federal agents at their apartment door. "FBI, open up, we have a warrant." Tyler had been fast asleep when the banging started. According to the police report I later obtained, he answered the door in his underwear, confused and disoriented. The last thing he expected was 2 federal agents with badges and a warrant for his arrest on charges of international abandonment and theft of federal documents. Amanda's arrest happened simultaneously at her sorority house. Campus security footage, which went viral within hours, showed her being walked out in handcuffs while her sorority sisters filmed from their windows. The caption on the TikTok that exploded across social media read, "When you abandon your cousin in Costa Rica and the FBI shows up." The timing wasn't coincidental. I'd specifically requested that the arrests happen on a Tuesday morning when both Tyler and Amanda would be on their respective college campuses. Maximum visibility, maximum impact, maximum humiliation. They'd abandoned my daughter in front of an airport full of witnesses. Now they could face their consequences in front of their entire peer groups. The federal prosecutor handling the case had been thorough. The charges were serious: international abandonment of a U.S. citizen, theft of federal documents, conspiracy to endanger, and criminal negligence. Each charge carried potential jail time, substantial fines, and permanent criminal records that would follow them for life. But the real devastation was just beginning. Within hours of the arrests, the story exploded across social media. The hashtag Costa Rica Cousins started trending as people shared the screenshots of Tyler and Amanda's cruel messages that had been released as part of the federal filing. The messages where they'd planned the abandonment, laughed about Sarah's terror, and celebrated their successful prank. The university newspaper at Tyler's school ran the story on the front page. Student arrested by FBI for abandoning cousin internationally. Amanda's sorority immediately suspended her pending investigation, and her university launched disciplinary proceedings that could result in expulsion. Local news picked up the story within 48 hours. The reporter I'd been working with had done her homework, presenting a timeline that made Tyler and Amanda's premeditation undeniable. Hotel footage, deleted messages, banking records, everything was laid out in devastating detail. But the moment that truly destroyed them came when the news segment aired Tyler's own TikTok videos from the trip, posted while Sarah was stranded and terrified. Video of him and Amanda laughing in the airport. Posts about their epic adventure, timestamped during Sarah's ordeal. Their own social media presence became the prosecution's strongest evidence. Tyler's defense attorney tried damage control, claiming it was a misunderstanding and a prank gone wrong. But you can't misunderstand deliberate planning messages that span 3 weeks. You can't accidentally book return flights for only 2 people when 3 people travel together. You can't mistakenly steal someone's passport and then post celebratory videos about it. The federal prosecutor was building an airtight case, and Tyler and Amanda had provided most of the evidence themselves. Their parents' reaction was exactly what I'd expected. Immediate denial, followed by desperate attempts at damage control. My sister called me crying, begging me to work this out as a family, and claiming Tyler and Amanda were good kids who made a mistake. A mistake? I remember saying into the phone, my voice deadly calm. Rebecca, they planned this for weeks. They stole Sarah's passport. They abandoned her in a dangerous country and laughed about her terror. That's not a mistake. That's calculated cruelty. But the most satisfying moment came when the extended family was forced to choose sides. The same relatives who'd always made excuses for Tyler's behavior, who'd dismissed his previous incidents as boys being boys, suddenly found themselves defending federal crimes on social media. The family WhatsApp group, which had been silent during Sarah's abandonment, exploded with arguments. Some family members were horrified by what Tyler and Amanda had done. Others tried to maintain the old patterns of enabling and excuse-making. But this wasn't a family barbecue disagreement anymore. This was federal court, and federal crimes don't care about family politics. The civil lawsuit I filed simultaneously was devastating in its own way. While the criminal case dealt with Tyler and Amanda's actions, the civil case targeted everyone who'd enabled them, including their parents, who'd helped plan the trip while knowing about Tyler's history of reckless behavior. My attorney had crafted the civil complaint beautifully. It wasn't just about Sarah's abandonment. It was about a pattern of family enabling that had culminated in federal crimes. Tyler's previous incidents, the family's history of covering for him, the parents' negligence in allowing this trip to happen, everything was documented with surgical precision. The financial impact was immediate and crushing. Tyler's family had to retain expensive federal criminal defense attorneys for both kids. Amanda's parents, who'd initially tried to distance themselves, were named as co-defendants in the civil suit. Legal fees alone were approaching 6 figures within the first month, but the social consequences were even more devastating. Tyler's college put him on academic suspension, pending the outcome of federal charges. Amanda lost her scholarship and was facing expulsion. Both of them became social pariahs on their respective campuses as the story continued to spread. The beauty of federal charges is that they follow you everywhere. Tyler couldn't transfer to another school without disclosing his federal criminal case. Amanda couldn't pledge a different sorority without her background check revealing pending felony charges. They'd destroyed their own futures for the sake of a hilarious prank. The media attention intensified when other families started coming forward with similar stories. The news reporter had opened a floodgate. Apparently, Tyler and Amanda weren't the only family members who thought abandoning relatives was acceptable behavior. A mother in Texas contacted the reporter about her brother-in-law who'd abandoned her son during a study abroad program. A father in Ohio shared a story about his sister leaving his daughter stranded during a family vacation. The problem was bigger than anyone had realized. Suddenly, Tyler and Amanda weren't just facing individual consequences. They'd become the poster children for a national conversation about toxic family dynamics and accountability. Their case was being cited in articles about family abuse, international travel safety, and the legal consequences of pranks. The federal prosecutor used this media attention strategically. "This case will set a precedent," she told me during one of our meetings. "We need to send a clear message that abandoning U.S. citizens abroad isn't a joke. It's a serious crime with serious consequences." Tyler and Amanda's attorneys were pushing for plea bargains, but the prosecutor wasn't interested in light sentences. The evidence was too strong, the premeditation too clear, and the public interest too high. They were going to face the full weight of federal justice. The preliminary hearing was a masterclass in legal devastation. Tyler and Amanda sat at the defendant's table looking like scared children, which they essentially were. Except children don't usually face federal felony charges. Their attorneys had tried to suppress some of the social media evidence, claiming it was taken out of context. But when the prosecutor played Tyler's TikTok videos in federal court, showing him laughing and celebrating while Sarah was stranded, the context was crystal clear. The judge's expression during the evidence presentation told me everything I needed to know. This was a parent who understood exactly what Tyler and Amanda had done, and she was not impressed with their prank gone wrong defense. When the prosecutor presented the timeline showing how they'd planned the abandonment, executed it with precision, and then celebrated their success on social media, the courtroom was silent except for the sound of Tyler's mother crying. The federal magistrate set bail at $50,000 each with travel restrictions and social media monitoring. Tyler and Amanda were now federal defendants with ankle monitors, prohibited from leaving their home states without court permission. But the hearing had another consequence I hadn't anticipated. The media coverage brought the story to national attention, and suddenly I was getting calls from victims' rights organizations, family advocacy groups, and legal reform activists. "Your case is unprecedented," one attorney told me. "You've created legal precedent for federal prosecution of family abandonment. Other victims are going to be able to use your case as a roadmap for justice." The civil settlement negotiations began 3 months after the arrests. Tyler's family was desperate to avoid a public trial that would expose even more of their enabling behavior. Amanda's parents, facing their own liability for co-planning the trip, were equally motivated to settle. But I wasn't interested in quiet settlements that would let them save face. I wanted accountability, consequences, and restitution that would ensure Sarah's future was protected. The final settlement was comprehensive and crushing. Full restitution for all of Sarah's trauma counseling, which the court mandated would continue for as long as necessary. Complete coverage of her college expenses, including graduate school if she chose to pursue it. Additional damages for pain and suffering that would ensure her financial security for years. But more importantly, the settlement included non-financial consequences. Tyler and Amanda were required to perform 500 hours of community service, specifically focused on international travel safety education. They had to speak at college orientations about the consequences of their actions, essentially becoming walking cautionary tales. The federal criminal case concluded with plea bargains that satisfied my need for justice. Tyler pled guilty to felony international abandonment and received 18 months in federal prison, plus 3 years of supervised probation. Amanda, as an accomplice, received 6 months in federal prison and 2 years of probation. Both of them now have permanent federal criminal records. Tyler's dreams of law school ended the day he was convicted of federal crimes. Amanda's plans for medical school became impossible once her background check revealed felony convictions. They traded their futures for a few moments of cruel laughter at my daughter's expense, but the most satisfying consequence was watching their social media presence completely disappear. The same platforms they'd used to document and celebrate Sarah's abandonment became unusable for them. Every potential employer, college admissions officer, or romantic partner could Google their names and immediately find the full story of their federal crimes. They'd made themselves unemployable and undateable with their own cruelty. The extended family consequences were equally satisfying. Tyler's parents faced social ostracism in their community as the story continued to circulate. Amanda's mother lost her position on the school board when parents objected to having someone who'd enabled international child abandonment, making decisions about student safety. Family gatherings became impossible as relatives were forced to choose between supporting federal criminals or maintaining relationships with the rest of the family. The family group chat that had once been full of Tyler worship became a battleground of accusations and recriminations. They'd thought abandoning Sarah would teach her independence. Instead, they'd taught the entire family that actions have consequences, and some consequences last forever. The transformation in Sarah was remarkable and inspiring. The terrified, abandoned teenager who'd called me from that Costa Rica airport had evolved into a confident young woman with an unshakable sense of her own worth and boundaries. Her college essays about overcoming family betrayal and international abandonment earned her admission to her dream school with a full scholarship. The trauma that Tyler and Amanda had inflicted became the foundation for Sarah's future success. She'd started a support group for other young adults who'd experienced family abuse and abandonment. Her story inspired other victims to speak up and seek justice. She was transforming her pain into power in ways that made me incredibly proud. But the most important change was in our relationship. The shared trauma had created an unbreakable bond between us. Sarah no longer doubted my commitment to protecting her, and I no longer questioned my instincts about family members who didn't deserve trust. We'd learned that blood relationship doesn't guarantee loyalty, love, or safety. But we'd also learned that we could count on each other absolutely, and that was more valuable than any extended family drama. The new boundaries we established were non-negotiable. Tyler's entire family branch was permanently cut off from our lives. No contact, no exceptions, no special occasions. They'd proven they couldn't be trusted with our safety or well-being, so they lost access to both. Extended family members who'd tried to pressure us to forgive and forget found themselves on limited contact as well. We'd learned to recognize manipulation tactics and emotional blackmail, and we no longer felt obligated to tolerate them for the sake of family harmony. Sarah's 19th birthday party was a celebration of everything we'd built together in the aftermath of her abandonment. Surrounded by friends who genuinely cared about her, mentors who supported her goals, and chosen family members who'd proven their loyalty, she was radiant with confidence and joy. During her birthday speech, she said something that brought tears to my eyes. A year ago, I learned that some people who call themselves family will abandon you when it's convenient. But I also learned that my mom will move heaven and earth to bring me home safely, and that's the only family relationship that really matters. We'd taken the worst thing Tyler and Amanda could do to us and transformed it into unshakable strength. The legal precedent our case established continued to impact other families dealing with similar situations. Sarah and I were invited to speak at conferences about family abuse, international travel safety, and victims' rights. Our story became a cautionary tale that protected other young people from similar abandonment. Prosecutors in other states began using our case as a template for pursuing federal charges against family members who endangered relatives abroad. The Tyler and Amanda Standard, as some lawyers called it, meant that abandoning family members internationally was no longer treated as a harmless prank. 3 years later, Sarah graduated summa cum laude with a degree in international law, specifically focused on victims' rights and family crimes. Her senior thesis about legal remedies for family abandonment was published in a law journal and cited in federal court cases. Tyler was released from federal prison to a world that had moved on without him. His social media accounts remained dormant because any attempt to rebuild his online presence was immediately met with reminders of his federal crimes. His job prospects were limited to positions that didn't require background checks, and his dating life was non-existent once potential partners discovered his history. Amanda struggled similarly after her release. The medical school dreams she'd sacrificed for a cruel prank were permanently out of reach. She was working retail jobs and living with her parents, who still faced social consequences for their role in enabling her crimes. But the most satisfying consequence was their complete irrelevance in our lives. They'd expected their abandonment of Sarah to be a temporary inconvenience that would eventually be forgiven and forgotten. Instead, it became the defining moment that removed them permanently from our story. Sarah and I built a life filled with people who deserved our trust, love, and loyalty. We traveled together safely, celebrating her graduation with a trip to Europe, complete with proper documentation, reliable companions, and emergency contacts who would actually help if needed. As we sat in a cafe in Paris, watching Sarah confidently navigate international travel with the skills and awareness her abandonment had taught her, I felt a deep satisfaction that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with justice. Tyler and Amanda had tried to teach Sarah that family couldn't be trusted and that she was dispensable. Instead, they'd taught her that she was worth fighting for, that justice was possible, and that the people who truly loved her would never abandon her. They'd thought their cruelty would break us. Instead, it made us unbreakable, and that was the best revenge of all.